Landreneau. I am from Katy ISD, which is a district right outside of Houston, Texas. We have about 76,000 students in our district, and this is going to be our 4th year going on Canvas. I am a district coordinator for Canvas, and in addition to that, I am the virtual school coordinator for Katy ISD.
And my name's Carrie Sanguinetti, and I am a classroom technology designer. So I implement or help teachers and staff in our district implement Canvas and other technology in the classroom. For the last couple of years, I've worked with K-12, all of the 76 schools in our district, helped them find ways to implement technology in their classroom. On the side, for fun, I teach high school speech class in the Katy Virtual School, and I also teach the online Instructure certification course with Barbara, and we have a lot of fun with that, certifying interested teachers in our district for online teaching capacity.
And so with our implementation, there's a lot of things that we did really well. In hindsight, there's some things that, we wish we would have done maybe a little bit differently. So we want to kind of talk to you guys today about our top 3 things that we feel are most important when you're looking at that implementation.
Your district has decided to adopt the most amazing LMS in existence. Every teacher is so enthusiastic about this new resource, they are begging for training to learn Canvas. Well, that may not actually be the case. Perhaps you have come across some opposition who may not be quite as thrilled as you are. The Death Star mentality can be intimidating and frustrating, but we are going to discuss ways to overcome this negative Nelly attitude when implementing Canvas in the classroom.
Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi. You're my only hope.
Actually, old Ben is not our only hope. There is an army of Canvas users ready and waiting to help you in the Canvas community. We will show you how to access this virtual fountain of knowledge and benefit from others' trials, errors, and successes. Making a smooth transition to Canvas can leave you feeling as if you were the smartest person in the galaxy. We will share some important steps that will help your implementation get off to a successful start that will make your district Canvas admin feel like a champion.
We're obviously big Star Wars nerds.
So we don't have this theme in our district that we are working hard to bring them to the dark side to get this implemented. So one of the things that you have to really start with when you are working with Canvas and bringing that into your district is growing your rebel force. You have to think about that. And so again, this isn't the model that we are using, but we do recommend that you come up with some type of model on how to get your teachers on board and how to get them excited about using Canvas. And so as I'm sure you all know, there are 5 stages to becoming a Jedi. And so we're going to explain how each of those stages fit within the Canvas implementation.
Okay, so we're going to start off by explaining the position of Younglings. These are your teachers who are just barely starting with Canvas. These guys have limited use in their Canvas courses. They may or may not have a home page or a syllabus. They may just be using it for digital resources such as e-textbooks. But these are your beginning Canvas users who have just decided, I'm going to log into Canvas and maybe create a course or try one out.
And they may be using it begrudgingly because their principal told them that they had to have a homepage or they had to have a syllabus. They may be using it because that's the only way their students can access that digital resource. And even after full 3 years, we still have teachers that are on this level, and that's okay because you can't expect everybody to start off and be Canvas experts. That next level is the Padawan, and those are the people that are really starting to explore more about Canvas. So they're starting to go out and learn more. They're starting to go do those trainings. They may be using Canvas in some way. Maybe they're using modules and are starting to structure their course. Maybe they're starting to explore some of those various aspects of Canvas. So they're starting to use an assignment, or they're starting to use a quiz.
And really, we just want to support them at that level and maybe take what they're already doing and know and say, hey, did you know with that you can also do this? And maybe teach them something else that they can do to build on that. And then we have our Jedi Knight. So a Jedi Knight is actively using Canvas in their environment. It could be in the classroom, it could be in professional development. So they have experience using Canvas actively. They're utilizing modules and have some kind of organizational structure in their course that's easy to see. They're utilizing a variety of Canvas components within their course.
And they're using them more actively. So it's not that they just have one quiz, a semester and that's it. They're using it more actively. They're being more active, more vocal in their school about the powers of Canvas.
And what they can do with that.
And then that next level is that Jedi Master, and those are your experienced Canvas users. Those are the ones, maybe they were your early adopters. They're certainly the ones that are very enthusiastic about Canvas, and they are out there and they are vocal and they are telling people, Canvas is amazing and this is why.
They have that well-developed course structure. They're maybe leading professional development on their campus or within the district, sharing with others the positive things and ways that they're using Canvas in the classroom.
And then finally, you have that Jedi Grand Master, and you're not going to have very many of these in your district because these are the leaders that are driving those Canvas decisions. They are probably Canvas admins, but like I said, they're making, running that district roadmap, helping to make sure that everybody is kind of on a cohesive page. They are developing the trainings that are being sent out to everybody else.
And these were probably the people who were involved in the choice of Canvas as the LMS and have an idea or a roadmap for where they want that to go.
All right, so without, not having to say this, I cannot stress the importance of that ongoing support and training. Just like implementing anything else in your district. If you're not providing support and training for your teachers, it's going to fall apart on you. You're going to lose interest, people are going to get frustrated. So you really want to start with that end in mind, and what is that support and training going to look like? Not just today, but a year from now, 2 years from now. How are you going to keep your teachers engaged? How are you going to keep them interested in Canvas?
And once you have an idea of what you want that final product to look like for your district, then you can go from there. You can build those steps that are going to be involved in order to make that a reality. And the main thing we want to remember is just perpetuating that growth. Barbara and I are both very active Canvas users. We're in there every single day, and I promise there's not a week that goes by where we're not still learning something new that we can do in Canvas. So it's important to remind our staff that you can constantly be learning and the resources that are available for them to do so.
And we're going to talk some more about our classroom technology designers and Canvas teacher leaders here in a little bit, but it's important to have that support staff as well, to have others that are out there, and it's not just you. And then having professional development, what does that look like? We're fortunate at our district, some of our earlier adopters were some of our coordinators, our curriculum coordinators, and they're now doing professional development, which is amazing. And now teachers are seeing that, and as a student, as they're getting involved in that Canvas course, they're starting to get ideas of what they can do in their own classrooms.
And as you can see in the photo, we are really always nerds, Star Wars nerds. This is us in the office with our Canvas lightsabers. Yes, Canvas knows we're weird about that, so they sent us these cool things. So,
and then, like I said, you're going to have that negative force in your district. You see it with other implementations. And so how do you find and fight that Death Star mentality in your district? Because again, you're going to run into it. If you start an implementation, I'm sure you've already run into it, whether it's coming from the top down or those very vocal teachers that I'm sure you have on your campuses.
But the very first thing you need to do is find out who they are. Who are those voices? What are those obstacles you're going to come up against? Because once you've identified those, then you can establish how to overcome them.
All right, so again, start with a plan. It's really important that you have that district roadmap in mind. You know, you've heard begin with the end in mind. I mean, this really applies to Canvas so strongly. What is it going to look like? One of the stumbling blocks that I think that we ran into as a district is when you're starting out, you don't know what you don't know. You don't know the right questions to ask. You know, so I encourage you to talk to your Canvas representatives, talk to other people in the community, talk to other Canvas users and say, what has your experience been? What have your roadblocks been? What are the things that went well? What are the things that didn't go well? You know, and then figure out what is your plan of implementation? What do you want Canvas to look like for your district? You know, we are backtracking in some ways because, like I said, we had an explosive growth, which was amazing. But our intention was to start off with a much smaller subset of users, and the enthusiasm was so great that it's really hard to turn people down. You know, so it's a catch-22 because it's really good, but then now we have to kind of backtrack and make sure that everybody's on the same page and not going rogue and doing their own thing.
So initially when we decided to adopt Canvas as a district, it was only going to be for the Katy Virtual School, which is a brand new concept for our district, providing certain courses, mainly electives, available to students, secondary students, to take online. But when everyone saw what an awesome tool it was, like Barbara said, it was explosive, and there were a lot more people in the district who wanted to make it a reality. So all of a sudden, we went from a very small sub-account to a huge, you know, district of 76,000 students that want to actively be involved in this resource. So, you know, it is shocking, but it's exciting at the same time, and it's really important when you're going to be overwhelmed in such a way to know what steps are we going to take to make this a valuable resource. Because what you really don't want to do is lose that interest, lose that momentum and that excitement. You want to take it and run with it and perpetuate it.
So some things you want to think about. If you are a K-12 district, you're going to have observers. So what do you want that to look like for your district? You know, are you going to allow parents to self-enroll? Are you going to use the parent app? There's a bunch of different ways to enroll parents. There are pros and cons to both of them. Talk to your Canvas rep, and you know that person can tell you, you know, what those pros and cons are. But think about your observers. Think about the way you're going to structure the back end, because there are ways that you can organize your courses, and you can create sub-accounts upon sub-account upon sub-account, which we have done for our different needs. But if you start with that structure, then it's a lot easier to carry on with that. Think about your professional development. Think about your digital resources, because Canvas integrates with so many different LTIs and different digital resources. You know, that's one of the big benefits of Canvas is that your students aren't having to leave to go to, you know, this place or that place. So think about all those different resources you use and how can you implement them within Canvas. You know, if you're doing textbook adoption soon, you know, maybe that's something you want to consider. Talk to those publishers, because that may be a determining factor on whether you go with this publisher or that publisher. Do you integrate with Canvas? And if you're using a resource that you really love and they're not integrated with Canvas, then start those conversations between you know, that company and Canvas, because Canvas has been really receptive to try to come up with creative solutions.
And talk to your staff. Find out what technology tools they're already using so that you can find ways that those integrate with Canvas also. Because they may be, you know, Google teachers, or they use Google Classroom or Google
Brain
Drive.
Talk, something like that.
Yeah, and you can take those, you know, those things that they've already built and created and embed those in a Canvas page. So students aren't having to go to 15 different places to access their activities and things that they need to do. And then, you know, just establish what they're already using so it's not such a huge learning curve for them to learn how to take what they're already doing and put it into one location for those kids.
And one thing that we're kind of backtracking on a little bit is the overall look and feel of those courses. You know, it's kind of that great debate on, you know, how much flexibility do you want your teachers to have versus how much cohesiveness do you want your students to have? You know, and again, there's pros and cons to both. So think about, do you want to have a template for your courses? Do you want everything to have the overall same look and feel? Are there certain components in Canvas that you want all of your teachers to be using? Or are there certain navigation features that you want hidden from your students because you want, you know, your teachers to be utilizing modules and to have your students going through those modules? So, you know, that I think is a really important thing because again, we are just now going, okay, now we have these curriculum courses, we need to come up with a template for that.
I think it's also very powerful to get your curriculum team involved
Absolutely.
in that planning, because they're so effective at deciding, what do the math courses need to look like? What kind of things do we need to have accessible to students and teachers in those courses? And so they're a really integral part of that planning process.
Another thing to take into consideration is those admin rights, because you have your district Canvas admins, but there's also sub-levels that you can give some people different controls. We have a principal role and an instructional coordinator role that's maybe based off of the district admin role, but they don't have the ability to go and see the sys imports. They don't have the ability to add users. So again, those are controls that you really want to look at, and how much granularity do you want to give your teachers? How much control do you want to give them?
And then we have the wonderful cynical Sith, that negative Nelly attitude, that person who says, what is this, the latest fad? How long is this going to last? Yeah,
right?
Exactly. I've heard that 3 billion times. But,
I don't have time for this,
I'm teaching. When am I supposed to learn this?
This doesn't apply to me. I can't use this in my classroom.
We've heard all of these excuses. And remember, you're marketing Canvas for your district. And, what you want to do is build that same excitement that you have for this resource with the staff. And there have been times when I've, pinpointed those negative attitudes and gone and just sat down with them and said, well, what is it you don't like? Well, I don't understand it. Okay, well, have you taken a look at it? Well, no, but I don't have time. Okay, well, let me show you some ways. And those are really powerful words, because if you can show them how they can use this in something they're already doing, it's amazing how quickly they get excited about it. Because educators, we're excited about teaching students, teaching what we know, and helping students find new ways to learn. We're just a little overwhelmed at times and we know that we don't have time to invest a lot in learning a completely new tool. But when you can show them how to do something easily that adds to their environment, and you start out with baby steps. Oh, you want to do this? Well, let me show you how to do this. Or, what's your favorite activity that you do in the classroom?
Show them how it can be transferred into Canvas.
Let's brainstorm how we can put this in a blended environment. So if you can pinpoint those negative attitudes, you'd be amazed at what a resource they can be on their campus.
And that person, as you know, that's probably the most vocal person on that campus, and they are everywhere. And if you can get that person on board, then they're going to become your strongest advocate, because now they're going to be saying, wow, look at all the cool things I can do with Canvas, and look what my students created and did in Canvas. And then, that attitude catches just like that cynical Sith attitude catches.
Some of our 3 favorite arguments for those attitudes are, explaining to them that this is the future of education.
Yes.
So many colleges and universities are using this tool, and if not Canvas, they're using an LMS.
And if not in their post-secondary options, then they're going to use it when they get into the workforce. They're going to use it if they get that ticket and they have to take defensive driving. Online learning is everywhere. So why not teach them the tools to be successful later in life?
Because we're giving them a leg up, and we're giving them an advantage over other students who've never seen online learning when they get to college. So we feel that we're preparing our students better for their next phase in life.
And we've actually had a lot of students that have come back and said, thank you so much for having Canvas, when I was a senior or junior in high school, because when I got to college, I was that much above my peers who didn't have that experience.
Cuts out that learning curve.
Absolutely.
And also explaining to teachers how actually this is going to save time. This is going to save you so much time. I have seen some beautiful examples of 4th, 5th, 6th grade teachers using Canvas to provide a blended learning activity in their classroom. And it's so cool to watch these teachers walking around the classroom with their iPad, facilitating an activity that students are, investigating and uploading and actively completing in Canvas. And then they'll, for example, this one teacher in particular would do an activity on a Canvas page. The students would get the information off the activity. It was like an infographic embedded on her page. They would fill out a worksheet as they were working in a small group. And we're not a one-to-one district. This is 5 iPads in a classroom that she checked out from the library. And there's 1 iPad in each group. And they're completing this assignment and then taking a picture and uploading it to Canvas for submission, and then going and taping that on the wall.
and the teacher is walking around and she's grading it as she's monitoring the classroom, and then she's seeing areas that need to be addressed and going and having a few minutes with a student one-on-one to say, hey, don't forget this, and let me go over this with you. You missed this point I really wanted you to get. So sitting there and watching something like that happen, it's just so exciting. And when you share those experiences with those teachers that have those negative attitudes about e-learning, you see them kind of light up and think, okay, well, maybe I could do this. And you know, I mean, you guys know how those coaches are. Well, I happen to have one in the family. And he was the most, I am not using technology. I teach teen leadership. How can I use this? And I have to tell you, I sold him on Canvas with quizzes. Because in teen leadership, they take a multiple choice final exam. And when his final exam period was over, and his grading was done because it was auto-graded and everything would have been in a question bank, he was like, this is the coolest thing I've ever done. Canvas rocks. I said, yeah, it does. I'm glad you get it. So now he's a vocal advocate to all the other coaches and finding new creative ways to use that in athletics.
And from that, you know, we've actually been able to brainstorm some really cool creative ways that additionally he could use in Canvas. So it's been really exciting. You know, and so if you can get, you know, some of your stronger teachers on board, your higher level Jedis on board, you know, and get them to create some of those quizzes and assignments and interactive pieces in Canvas. You know, a great thing with Canvas is you can share that district-wide. We have a lot of district-wide PLCs that are collaborating in a master course that are building content together, so it's not all up to one person. And we have curriculum coordinators that are working on that. So then those resources can be shared out to all those student courses, and again, that's just such a powerful tool. All right, so who does Canvas work for? And I don't think we have found anybody really that it doesn't work for yet.
Works for everybody.
Works for everyone.
Every club, every activity, every area in your district.
Professional development training.
Absolutely.
GT hours. We do GT training on Canvas now. The teachers are required to have a certain number of hours per year, so they're doing it in Canvas.
And now that they're getting more familiar with using it in their classroom, you know, I'll have a teacher contact me and say, hey, I want to use this for my academic decathlon team so that my students can continue preparing for that over the summer. I'd like to input resources throughout the summer and let them have access to that, because this is a great way for them to, you know, continue their preparation during, you know, downtime when they normally wouldn't have access to that. And we've really been able to talk to them about how to provide that extension of the learning environment. We, a couple of years ago, had a flood vacation.
5 days. 5 days of no school, and it was towards the end of the year. So we had STAR testing, which is our state testing coming up. We had final exams coming up. We had teachers in panic, and we had parents that were frustrated because their students weren't learning.
For a whole week?
We have very vocal parents, as I'm sure some of you do as well. So we were having parents that were emailing teachers and saying, I need resources, I need work, my kid needs to be learning while you know, he's at
We
home.
don't have time not to be in school,
Right.
was the general attitude. And our teachers, and this was when Canvas was really, you know, we were starting to push it out.
It was pretty new for us, yeah.
Yeah, our teachers were like, oh, hey, we can use our Canvas, you know, our Canvas course to push that content, that important content out to the students so they can continue learning when they're not here.
That was so eye-opening for our for our teachers. You know, not that I suggest any of you take a week off of school towards the end, but we were able to take that experience, and then those teachers became vocal and said, hey, guess what I could do? You know, my learning didn't stop. And again, that was amazing to see, because that really ignited a lot of enthusiasm for teachers who didn't necessarily have it before.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And just that school community communication. You know, being able to push announcements out to your parent observers and your students and staff. And campuses are using Canvas as a way to get, you know, mandatory trainings out to their staff members.
Right.
And we had several new campuses open in our district this year. And I was really excited when those principals came to me and said, can you help us build a Canvas course? So as we're hiring people, we can add them to the course so they know when our training dates are, what documentation we need. We can have them submit things online that, you know, we're going to need from them. And I thought that was a really exciting idea.
It is, and now they're setting the standards for their school, which is just opening, and now all the teachers are on board, which, you know, and everybody's on the same page. So that was a neat experience as well.
I even had one campus that it's a high school campus, and they wanted for teachers to have one place
where they could go for campus calendar and events. But the secretary didn't want to manage everything, so we discussed the possibility of creating a course that all teachers were enrolled in, but also creating an athletics course and a fine arts course that all teachers were also enrolled in, and then that fine arts director and that athletics coordinator manage those pages. But those two courses are embedded in the main campus course that the teachers are in.
Together.
So now all of the sporting events, fine arts events, are populating their teachers' calendars. So that's kind of cool to see it happening, using it in new ways like that.
All right, so it's a new journey. It's a very exciting journey. You can feel like you are kind of alone in this, but the good thing is there are a lot of people out there, both within and outside of Canvas, that are out there to help. You really, truly do have that galaxy of heroes that's awaiting for your call of distress. That's right. Throw me a lifeline here.
The neat thing about Canvas users is that we're always so excited to help other Canvas users. So you can really take advantage of that opportunity. I don't think I've ever asked any Canvas user a question about something where they haven't gushed about it and then told me 5, 6 other things.
You've
that
probably
I could
seen
do
it
with
here
that.
at the conference, I would imagine,
Exactly.
because everybody, you say Canvas and they smile and get excited, eager to talk to you. So the first thing, is your CSM. And if you're not sure who your customer success manager is yet, you will soon. And this is going to be your go-to person. This is your first line of defense. This is a picture of our wonderful Carly who, unfortunately for us, but fortunately for her, she is out on maternity leave. She just had a beautiful little baby boy, so she can't be here. But she's just been wonderful for us. And again, this is your first point of contact. This is your lifeline. This is when things are going wrong or you don't understand something or you have questions or you have a ticket that's in to support and you're not getting answers. This is the person that you reach out to first. Like I've stated, we are about to start our 4th year of adoption with Canvas. We still have weekly calls with our CSM. There are a lot of things that we've started doing with that CSM to kind of help keep track of things because Canvas is continually changing. It's ever evolving, which is wonderful, but sometimes it can be hard to keep up with those items. So we have her notify us with important changes, changes that she knows is going to be important to our district so that we can be on the lookout for that, so that we can go into our beta instance and test those out and send that information out to our teachers before all of a sudden they get it and it's a surprise, because you don't want those surprises for those teachers, especially those ones that are scared of Canvas and nervous about getting on board. So she sends us a running list of upcoming things, release notes, because Canvas does a release, I believe it's every 3 weeks. So we can send that information out and prep our teachers. Another thing that we have is a running document of problems, because, Canvas is not perfect. No entity is. So we do have stumbling blocks. We do put in support tickets. And she keeps track of that for us on a Google Doc. So we review that every week, because if you put in a support ticket and you don't talk about it, you're going to forget about it. And you don't want that to get lost. So that's another thing that, I suggest that you talk to that CSM as you're implementing, and say, hey, we want to set some things up like this, because this would help us as a district.
And it's such a valuable relationship, too.
Absolutely. And we've gone through, I think Carly's our 3rd. We keep running them off. But Casey was our CSM prior to Carly, and it was the same thing. We had those weekly calls, and, I would call Casey, I kind of think on a regular basis. He probably got tired of me texting him and calling him.
They communicate so much that we office together, and I knew Casey really well just from her phone calls. So, like I said, they're valuable relationships.
Absolutely.
And very supportive.
So don't ever hesitate to reach out to that person, because they are there to help you. That is their job, and they are excited and enthusiastic to do that.
Okay, and user groups are a great resource. We have a Texas user group, but recently we've also established a Canvas Houston users group. And it's really a lot of fun to get together with them and see what's working for them with their Canvas use. What's not working for them. Oh, hey, this is working great for us too. And we took it a step further and did this. You might want to try it out. Or they might tell that to us. It's just a great resource to find out, what other Canvas users in your area are doing. And there's power in numbers. So, if there is something,
it gives us a bigger voice. Sometimes you need a bigger voice.
Exactly. And if there is something that's not working well, and you see that it's not working well for someone else, then
The larger group now is going to give you the ability to contact Canvas and say, hey guys, this seems to be an issue across the board in the Houston area, so let's see what we can do to resolve that.
That was actually one of our first meetings. We all got together and we said, one of us said, we're having this problem, and everybody else said, well, we're having this problem. Oh, we're having this problem. And so we all went out and called our CSMs and said, hey, we're all having this problem. So again, that, there really is power in numbers. So if you have a group in your area that you can join, or if there's just other users in your area, start a group if there's not already one there, because that's just, again, power in numbers.
And Canvas is great about giving you a space in the community to meet with your group, and so, that's kind of cool too. And yes, our acronym is CHUG, but that is like a choo-choo train, not like college weekends or anything like that. Just want to clarify.
And then Carrie said something about the Canvas community. Again, if you don't know what the Canvas community is, get out there and figure it out, because it is just a vast wealth of amazing resources. And there are users from all over the world that are in there. There are Canvas employees that are in there regularly, but I find the most powerful resources that I have utilized are those other Canvas users, those power users. They are probably those Grand Master Jedis in their area.
Like I said, Canvas users are always excited to help other Canvas users, and let's be honest, we're online all the time. So when somebody puts a question out there, you're going to have 15 responses in 5 minutes. Perfect example, right before this conference, I don't know how many of you were in the community and saw someone, I think from the UK, ask, hey, what do we wear to Instructure Con? I don't want to pack my whole closet. I'm about to travel that way. And there was constant feedback. Well, hey, I wore this. Well, I'm a Texas girl, so you drop below 80 and it's winter
It's a little
weather.
chilly.
It's jacket weather for me, so I'm taking Under Armour and sweatshirts. And so, it's just a valuable resource. And then it's really exciting when you have an idea or something that would make Canvas even better. And like for me, it was printable quizzes, because I had a student with modification or accommodations that needed to have a paper quiz to take. And I couldn't find anything in the Canvas guides, which we'll talk about in a minute, couldn't find anything on how to print a Canvas quiz. So I went to the community and said, hey, anyone know how to print a quiz in Canvas? And somebody sent, besides all the responses I got, with all kinds of, ways around it and how to make it work, I got a link to a vote, because that was an item that was up for vote.
So you can actually submit a feature idea, and then as a part of the Canvas community, you can go in and vote that idea up or vote it down. And so that's how, changes occur within Canvas.
Exactly. So I voted and then forwarded that out to everyone I knew and said, hey, vote this up. And it happened. And that's one of the greatest things about this LMS, is that they listen to you and they make changes that work for us.
And again, that's where that power of numbers comes in, because you can send that out to all the people that you know and say, hey, you need to get your people to go vote this up, because this is affecting all of us. And then you can join groups. There are public groups, there are private groups. As Canvassadors, we are part of the Canvassador group. We have our CSM created a CHUG group for us, so we have that Canvas Houston Users group that's a part of the community. It's just another way to connect and to get ideas out there and share those ideas.
And yet another resource, because if you're in charge of, if you're a district admin, then there's an admin group. If you're in charge of, designing courses, there's an instructional designers group. So once you connect with those other people that are doing the same thing as you are, why reinvent the wheel? You have resources available to you that have already done what you're doing maybe, or that can help build what you want to do. So take advantage of that.
Within the community, you're also going to find the Canvas guides. And again, if you haven't found the Canvas guides yet, you need to go explore them, because they really are amazing. They are updated very regularly. They have screenshots. They're very easy to read, very easy to follow, and very specific. So it breaks down each item within Canvas into very specific components. So if you're looking for how do I create an assignment, that is a document, how do I create an assignment, or how do I delete an assignment, or how do I create a group assignment. There's probably about 20 different things just on assignments alone.
And like she said, I love the fact that when they update in Canvas, they update every guide. So you're not having to go in and re-record steps on how to do something or recreate things. I use Canvas guides for everything. Even as a teacher, for example, because Canvas guides have different perspectives. You can see things from a teacher perspective, from a student perspective. So if I create, for example, a discussion post assignment, then I'll say, give them the activity details, and then say, reply with your feedback on this. If you need to know how to reply to a discussion post, click here. And then I'll hyperlink to the page where it says, how do I respond to a discussion post as a student? So my students start to learn how to help themselves, and that carries over into other classes they're in. And I'll do that also, with the training, professional development that I lead, so my teachers see it and say, that's a good idea, I'm gonna do that. And it's just that ripple effect.
And I will tell you, as a Canvas admin, it was a little bit frustrating for me at first, because when I would reach out to my CSM, and I would say, what about this, or how do you do this, they would refer me back to the guides. And I'm like, okay, if I wanted to go dig through the guides, I would have gone to dig through the guides. But, I find myself doing the same thing now, because it really is such a good resource and instantaneous, because, we're not always available 24 hours a day, despite what our students and teachers may think. So being able to have that resource and say, well, you do it like this, here's a guide that gives you more information, gives you pictures and step-by-step directions, it just empowers your learners.
And as a Canvas admin or trainer, it also gives you the ability to answer quickly, because I'll get emails from staff members who say, hey, how do I create a page? And I may be out somewhere at a training or something, but I'll have my phone on me, so I'll see that email. I can quickly go to the guides and post the link and say, hey, I'm busy right now, I can give you more details later, but this will help you out for now. So you're getting that and quick response to them, and it gives you the ability to do that.
And we put that as a part of our virtual courses and the online instructor certification course that we developed. So again, the students and the teachers can go and click on that link if they need that help or that more information.
I do have to say one last thing. My first day in my position now, they said, oh, by the way, you're going to be in charge of the Canvas help desk, or you're going to work in the Canvas help desk. And I said, okay, and I had built Canvas courses, but I didn't know everything there was to know. But wonderful Barbara introduced me to the guides, probably so I wouldn't ask her every 5 minutes.
She still did.
I did. But it gave me a good resource to go and learn, and I was able to forward that on. So everyone, has the ability to learn from those guides.
So those are really the 3 biggest points that we feel are probably the most important as you're going through your implementation process. So, we appreciate your time. Is there any questions that we can answer for you before we? Yes, sir.
First, I want to say that I appreciate your comment on you don't really know what you know until you really, when you get into it, you just don't even have any idea. And one of those things that we didn't really have any idea about was expectations or like bare minimums for teachers. You kind of touched on that a little bit. What do you guys do? Do you have like certain expectations as kind of a starting point for teachers, like on a homepage or a syllabus, or and if you do, can you tell us what those might be? And if you have a Google Doc or something on that, would you be willing to share?
You can elaborate a little more.
Well, and say the question was, do we have any minimum recommendations on what we do and what we require for our teachers in the district?
And I can tell you that we do have a little bit of freedom in our district at this time. It is really has been more of a campus-based decision. That being said, there are some certain things that I think we would like to implement and see happen across the district.
We have recommendations on, you should have a minimum of these 4 items, that homepage, that syllabus, and the syllabus may be your homepage. We recommend that teachers use modules. Teachers use modules, and I kind of went blank on the 4th thing, but calendar, yes, thank you. And then we actually recommend that most of those other navigational tabs are hidden from student view, because if you're having students work through modules and you have the assignments tab open or the quizzes tab open, it causes confusion. So, we recommend that you come up with some type of structure for your district, whatever that works. We prefer modules. And then hide whatever tabs you can on the left so that students kind of know where to go. We do. We do recommend those K through 12.
Any other questions?
Yes, ma'am.
So one of the things you talked about was time and how it saves time, and you gave an example of how it saves time in the classroom. So a lot of pushback I've been hearing, it has been the time it takes to create. And my response is, you go slow to go fast. You go slow, build it up, then it's going to take off. So I was just curious what other arguments you had for that when it's the creation part, that they're a little panicked.
Yeah, I do explain to my teachers when I'm, doing training and talking to them that, it may take a little time up front to build things. It would regardless if they're creating lesson plans or planning activities. But once it's in there, it's in there. And we offer lots of camps throughout the summer where teachers can go, and it'll be a workshop setting with the instructional technologists, or it'll be a specific training over a technology aspect that they want to learn more about. We just give them lots of options for summer trainings because teachers do have a little more time in the summer. But we just really like to remind them that they're going to plan regardless. It's going to take them time. So let's plan smart in a way that it's going to be there for next year. And then we show them how exciting it is to be able to, we recommend master courses and how easy it is to import that content into their live student courses and, adjust the dates or, it's one click once you get it in there.
And that's where it can become so powerful if you have that campus or that district PLC that's working together so it doesn't fall to just one person, so that the burden is shared, and then explain to people it doesn't have to be implemented this year, Work on it throughout the years. As you are up there teaching a lesson, record it. And then you have that video that you can use, as a digital resource for next year. And you have those resources that you can share throughout the district, throughout the campus, where everybody's working together. And it's just less of a burden and less time consuming for all. And like Carrie said, then it's there. It's a resource. It can be revamped, but it doesn't have to be redone. And the other thing too, you don't always have to recreate the wheel. And that's one thing that I stress to my virtual teachers because they're developing full courses to teach fully online. Go find those resources. There are a lot of videos that are already out there. There's a lot of teachers that are already sharing their content. Yes, vet the content first, but then utilize it because it's there, and that's just less time that they have to do creating that.
We do have some pens and notepads here. Coach Sanguinetti, if you don't mind, he'll pass those out if you'd like to pick one up. Those are from Katie Virtual School, and we'll be here for a few more minutes if you have any other questions.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.